Okay, Joe Rogan, host of The Man Show, Comedy Central, host of Fear Factor, host of a new big show coming out on CBS, host of Ultimate Fighting Championships, top comedian, good friend of mine. He was on with us in the last hour talking about electronic voting machines, government corruption, you name it. He'll be riding shotgun with us for the rest of this hour, but for the next 40 minutes or so, Vincent Bugliosi is our guest. He really doesn't need any introduction. Mr. Bugliosi was the individual who successfully prosecuted the Manson family. And, of course, had a best-selling book there. Things he's written have been made into TV and movies, and it goes on and on. His new book is The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder. Vincent Bugliosi, available at Amazon.com and everywhere else. And I tell you, we are really honored to have him on with us. And Joe Rogan, again, is going to be riding shotgun. And he's really politically active and been exposing what the administration's been doing. So he'll be chiming in as well. Mr. Bugliosi, thanks for coming on with us.
Well, I'm happy to be on the show, Alex. I appreciate it.
You bet. You are a very well-respected prosecutor and crime investigator. What made you write this book, and why should? What a provocative headline title, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, Alex, I don't like to see anyone get away with murder, much less over 100,000 murders. When you stop and think about the thousands upon thousands of deaths in Iraq, and the horror and the screaming and the sea of blood and the incredible suffering there, it's unimaginable. And the question is, who's going to pay for all of this? Someone has to pay. And the person that has to pay, obviously, is the one that's responsible for all of this horror and death and suffering. And that person, the evidence shows, is George Bush. So far, he's gotten away with murder. This book, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder, may put an end to it, may put him where he belongs in an American courtroom being tried for murder. This obviously is the most explosive book of my 30-year career. I've had 3 books, got up to number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list, Outrage on the Simpson Case, Helter Skelter, and The Sea Will Tell. And this book is not my magnum opus. That's Reclaiming History, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, which is presently being made by Tom Hanks and his people into a 10-hour miniseries for HBO. But this is the most explosive book. I'm dead serious about it. I've had 21 successful murder prosecutions, and at this stage in my life, I'm 73, I wouldn't in a million years think of bringing a case against the President of the United States unless I thought there was sufficient evidence and that I was standing on very firm legal ground. And hopefully we'll be able to get into some of the evidence against Bush.
Well, let me just throw this out, and I've ordered the book. I haven't gotten it yet. I can't wait to read it, sir, and I really respect your opinion on this. My problem here is that we have the White House memos ordered by Bush to be written up by John Yoo, by, of course, now Attorney General, then Chief Counsel Alberto Gonzales, a former Attorney General, saying they can torture children sexually with pliers, that they can torture someone to death, and if they didn't mean to kill them, it's okay. That right there, isn't that arrestable? Isn't that Joseph Mengele-type stuff?
Yeah, this book has nothing to do with torture. When you talk about mass torture, you're talking about the International Criminal Court at The Hague, and they wouldn't even have jurisdiction to go after Bush for this because the United States was not a signatory nation to the agreement establishing the ICC, and it's not clear. It's not completely clear that Bush is complicit in this torture thing. He issued a executive order in February of 2002 mandating that all detainees are treated humanely. But this book has nothing to do with torture. It has something to do with murder, specifically the 4,000 U.S. soldiers who died in Iraq fighting Bush's war. There's kind of an echo, Alex, when I'm talking, if you can tell your radio guy to take the echo out.
Okay, we're not getting that on air, sir. I apologize.
Okay.
But before we get...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Before we get into the evidence, just want to introduce Joe Rogan to you. And
Hi, Joe.
Joe, what do you think what do you think of the idea of this book? That's a stunning title by somebody of the caliber of Vincent Bugliosi, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder.
Here's my question. Do you really think that it is possible that after he's out of office that he could be brought into court and tried for something like this? Do you really believe that that's possible?
Or will Hillary or McCain or Barack Obama pardon him?
if you're talking about the law, Joe, there's still that echo there. If you're talking about the law, Jesus, the echo's getting worse and worse. So tell the guy to do something to take away this echo. Joe, if you're talking about the law, the evidence is very, very clear that he can be prosecuted for murder once he leaves office. Look, I'll give you a classic example. In 1974, when Nixon resigned, you're well aware that there was a movement to prosecute him criminally for crimes he committed while he was in office, and of course, Gerald Ford. The law is very, very, very clear. It goes back to the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton, 1787, that once a president leaves office, he can be prosecuted for any crime he committed while he was in office. And I was talking about Nixon. There was a movement, a strong movement in America after he resigned to prosecute him for crimes like obstruction of justice and wiretapping and subornation of perjury, and then that was all obviated when President Ford granted him a pardon. So there's no question that he has no immunity from prosecution. Now, on the other question of the likelihood of this happening, I'll be candid with you. I do not believe there's a high probability of this, but I definitely believe there's a substantial possibility that George Bush will, in fact, be prosecuted for murder as a direct result of this book. And the main reason I say this is because of the great number of prosecutors in America I've established jurisdiction for in my book. I've spent well over 100 hours in the law library working on this jurisdiction issue. He can be prosecuted for the crimes of murder and conspiracy to commit murder under both federal and state law. Federally, the prosecutor would only be the U.S. Attorney General in Washington, D.C., acting through his Department of Justice. But on a state level, I've established jurisdiction for the Attorney General in each of the 50 states, plus the hundreds upon hundreds of district attorneys in counties within these states to prosecute Bush for the murder of any soldier or soldiers from their state or county who died in Iraq fighting Bush's war. With all of these prosecutors, it could number close to 1,000 prosecutors. And with all of the very powerful evidence of Bush's guilt that I presented in my book, it's not unreasonable to believe, Alex, that at least one prosecutor in America, maybe many more, will be courageous enough to say, hey, this is the United States of America. No man is above the law. The evidence of George Bush's guilt is clear, so I'm going to go after him and bring about justice for the American people.
Stay there, sir. Joe Rogan, stay there as well. The new book, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder. We'll come back and specifically hear about what the crimes are from one of America's most famous prosecutors. We've got quite a combination here today. Vincent Bugliosi, who prosecuted successfully the Manson nutballs. He's written a bunch of best-selling books, 3 New York Times bestsellers. I want to get him back on sometime about his JFK info, because I actually disagree with him on that, but he's written the magnum opus on it, 1,000 pages. So we'll let him come on and school us about that in the near future if he'll grace us. Quick segment now. I apologize to him about technical problems. Joe Rogan riding a shotgun. Go ahead, sir, right now. Get into why you think Bush is guilty and needs to be prosecuted for murder. Tell us why.
Okay, without getting into the legal complexities of malice aforethought and vicarious liability, which be very dry and arcane, I can tell you that if Bush were prosecuted for murder, the central overriding question would be, did he take this nation to war in self-defense? If so, it's called justifiable homicide. He claims that he took the nation to war in self-defense, his so-called preemptive strike. If it came out at the trial, however, that he did not take the nation to war in self-defense, but he took the nation to war under false pretenses, then all of the killings in Iraq of American soldiers would be unlawful killings. And being unlawful killings, it would be murder. Let me just talk to you about some of the evidence. If we have time, we can get into more. But I think what I'm going to be telling you is going to be astonishing to you. It'll take a little time, but let me explain it to you. In George Bush's first speech to the nation, Alex, on Hussein in Iraq, October the 7th, 2002, Cincinnati, Ohio, he told Americans that Hussein was a great danger to America, either by Hussein attacking us with weapons of mass destruction or giving these weapons to some terrorist group to do so. And he said that this attack could happen, quote, on any given day, unquote, meaning that the threat was imminent. The only big problem for George Bush, and I don't know how he would get around this at the trial, is that on October the 1st, 2002, 6 days earlier, the CIA sent George Bush its 2002 National Intelligence Estimate, a top-secret classified report representing the consensus opinion of all 16 U.S. intelligence agencies on the issue of whether Hussein was an imminent threat to the security of this country. And on page 8 of that report, it clearly and unequivocally says, and what I'm about to tell you, to my knowledge, has never appeared before in any American newspaper, any major American paper or magazine. Page 8 clearly says Hussein was not an imminent threat to the security of this country.